You got a railroad track. First Street, Second Street, Third Street, Blaze Avenue,
He was born and raised here in St. Louis. He was one of 6, 2 sisters, and 3 brothers.
My name is Myron Labat, 71. I was born here, actually born in Gulfport, but raised here in Bay St. Louis. Born in 1952. I'm the oldest child of Bernard and Dorothy Mae Labat, and oldest of 10 children that they had, all raised here in Bay St. Louis.
All right, Charles Joseph. I guess I'm the oldest one here. I'll be 80 in a couple months. But actually, Calvin and I live next door to each other.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Not 2 doors, 1 door. Yeah.
1 door. He was 216, he was 218. Mm-hmm. And Maurice, he was much younger than I am. And we, I would say, met in school, St. Rose, or mostly in church, I would say.
I think you were in my first communion picture as an altar boy.
That's right.
Really?
That's right. I remember seeing that
really?
picture. Yeah.
I wouldn't doubt it, because I was in a lot of pictures like that, carrying a cross. As a matter of fact, I posted one on Facebook not too long ago.
Mm-hmm. Charles Joseph, Carver Curry, and Albert Curry.
Yeah.
Yep, that. And as far as what relationships or anything, we were community back then, back in the day, in that everybody in everybody's family basically knew each other. Mm-hmm. And that's how we came to know each other, through our parents. It's basically a handed down thing from generation to generation. And this is the culmination of that.
Well, I'd like to talk about us, and I've mentioned, everybody's mentioned where we went to school and how we got to know each other. But one of the things that we all have in common is that we're all Catholic. And in the southern state of Mississippi, especially when you talk to people from outside of the state, they didn't recognize that there were Black people in the state who were Catholic. But we grew up Catholic. We grew up in a Catholic community. We grew up in a Catholic school. And we grew up under the tutelage of the Catholic nuns and Catholic priests in this community. So familially, the families came together through church, through school, and through social activities. Myron is my cousin, first cousin. Sisters were our parents, our mothers. Charles was my next door neighbor. He woke me up many mornings to go serve Mass at St. Rose. And Maurice and I are fraternity brothers from the college days. Of course, I pledged before he did, but we're all fraternity brothers. But the common thread that's running through what's sitting at this table today is that we are 4 Black men, well-educated men, men who stood on their own 2 feet in an era when things were different for Southern Blacks. How different? Very different, because most people think when you say the South, I won't go to the South, I'm not going there because Black people are treated so poorly and so shabbily. So I'll leave it at that point until we get to say that. But the connection again is that through our church, through our community, through our school. Okay, no?
Well, it's funny you say that. Myron and I were in college at USM, and people thought we from the coast, we were so different. We were so different because we had a certain confidence that we had been uplifted growing up in Bay St. Louis. And I think some of the guys, black guys who grew up in different parts of the state, felt maybe a little bit more uncomfortable, a little intimidated. That might not be the word I'm looking for, but they weren't as comfortable in their skin as we were coming, I think, from Bay St. Louis, because they always said them boys from the coast are different. But anyway, I grew up looking up to these three guys. Charles alluded that I'm the youngest, probably at the table. I was born in 1953. I'm 70 years old. And I am part of the village that these guys came ahead of me, and I looked up to them. Calvin, I'll never forget. I think you said you don't remember this, but you had a felt hat that you wore, that you cut diamonds throughout. When you come in, lead the basketball team in for a St. Rose basketball game, singing Amen. You remember that, Myron?
Oh, I remember that.
Calvin told me you don't remember that.
I remember that.
But that was so important for us because we were part of a village that we had people to look forward to, who we look forward to be in that position that one day we were going to be playing basketball. And of course, St. Rose closed before we were able to graduate. But we knew that there was an expectation because there was only a few guys at St. Rose. I think in the whole St. Rose High School, when I was a freshman, the year it closed, there might have been 22, 23 guys in the whole high school. But you know what? There was an expectation that I was going to play basketball for Bay High. I don't know if I was going to be wearing that cutout diamond hat, but I was going to be part of that St. Rose team. And then Myron and I eventually, Myron was the first African-American to start on a basketball team at Bay High. And of course, the second year we were there, I started with it. So but anyway, I looked up to these guys. I knew these guys as altar boys. I knew them as basketball players, and I followed sort of in their steps as an altar boy, as a basketball player, and we just had great role models. We were a great village.
Mm-hmm. You think back to the families and how they all were connected. It did not matter whether you went to Catholic school. There were only two schools we could go to, Valina C. Jones and St. Rose. But the churches were so strong at that time. We had Valina C. Jones Methodist Church. We had the St. Rose Catholic Church. We had the Missionary Baptist Church. All of these churches were in our community. And historically speaking and researching, I found out just recently that one of my grandparents was involved in the founding of Valina C. Jones Methodist Church. I have that documented too. So as a matter of fact, it's in the car if we want to take a look at it. But he was involved in the development of the church here in the community. My grandfather, Oswald Gilbert, was deemed a British subject. And if he was ill or sick or injured in any way, he could go to the daughter's hospital. What was it called?
King's Daughters.
King's Daughters Hospital here in Bay St. Louis, where the rest of us could not, because he was
Born in the Virgin Islands.
Born in the Virgin Islands, he was considered a British subject. So so he was part of you didn't know that.
No.
Yeah. So we've been here. We have strong roots in the community. We've been here since, my family's been here since 1836. And we were able to do the research, and each one of Myron's brothers and sisters and family members all received copies of that history. Here it is, my wife and I made copies of all of that for our family. So that's chronologued for this area. Rachel, and we can certainly share that with the community at some point. Yeah. As far as difference, Maurice, we were different in that so many people from the other part of the state had to suffer so many different kinds of antagonism, racism, discrimination. We did, We endured it,
but definitely not to that.
but it was
degrees
not to
they
that
did.
extent.
Yeah.
And we kind of knew where things were and how things were in the area and what was expected. But beyond the expectations of what the community wanted, what the city wanted, we set our own expectations. And we did things that nobody else in the other part of the state would even dare do. And that comes back to the point that you made about USM. You guys are different. Well, we're different because we were raised with a certain amount of confidence in who we actually were, in our own skin, if you will. And that confidence made us reassuring in ourselves of where we're going, what we're doing, why we're doing things, and what path we plan to set for ourselves and our families.
I want to add something to that too, because you mentioned the churches. We had another element here in Bay St. Louis that I think impacted us. I'm not going to say any of us wanted to become priests, but we had St. Augustine Seminary here with priests who were very well educated, 8-10 years education, and a lot of them taught us catechism, or they matriculated in at St. Rose as pastors of our parish, and we got to interact with them. And also, you mentioned Bellini C. Jones. We got to see professional teachers, principals running that school, and there was overlap, there was interaction between that. So being a small town, having a predominantly Black public school, a predominantly Black Catholic school, a predominantly Black seminary, we got to see power sources, I think, that served to be just good examples of maybe you don't want to become priests, maybe you don't want to become teachers, but there was a good amount of professional African Americans in our community, I think, that kind of was subtle encouragement on a daily basis, maybe not so subtle, but impactful on a daily basis, because we'd go to seminary after school, ride our bikes through the seminary grounds, that it was hilly, so it was a challenge. We'd run through the culvert to go to Frost Top or whatever. So we got to, I think the seminary and other churches and schools had a major impact on opportunity, expectation, and what we could possibly become, you know.
Yeah, that's true. And another thing that played into the confidence or the difference between us, the southern part and the northern part of Mississippi. You ever had to explain the two Mississippis to anybody?
Well, I have.
Because when you say Mississippi to an outsider, the first thing in their head is slavery and cotton field.
Right.
Yep.
The whole Mississippi is one thing.
Right. And they never heard of, well, we're from the coast. Oh, Mississippi has the coast? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I thought about that over the years. Why is there that difference? And the only thing I could come up with is Bay St. Louis and the coast of Mississippi is situated right in between two major port cities.
Okay.
To the west, New Orleans, and to the east, Mobile.
And Biloxi.
Mobile.
I'm saying Biloxi and Mobile, because Biloxi had the Air Force Base with a lot of influence here too.
That's true too. But my thinking was shipping port. And with these two major ports, you also have businessmen coming to do business in these cities, and they travel back and forth from one to the other. Now, during that travel, they're going to stop somewhere at Biloxi, Gulfport, Bay St. Louis, and you get to know the Mississippians, us who live here. You get to know other people. They're not from Mississippi, they're not from Alabama, they're not from the South at all. They're from a different country, they speak differently, and that affects the way we speak, act, talk, and live, basically. So because we unconsciously assimilate some of their properties, so to speak. And that's what makes, in my opinion, the South of Mississippi different from the north of Mississippi. Because I've been told a lot of times that you talk with an accent. I do? Yeah, you don't sound like you're from Mississippi. I said, well, what does a Mississippian sound like? I don't know, but you don't sound like one.
You don't sound like that.
Okay.
So all that plays into how we were
Perceived.
influenced
Yeah.
as we grew up. The other thing is, since all our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents, in some instances, knew each other,
Mm-hmm.
that made us family.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, how many people in Bay St. Louis that you're not related to, but you call them cuz anyway?
Yeah.
You know, hey cuz, how you doing? All right, you're not related, but we are related through community. How did racism affect you when you were growing up?
Well, I think initially it did affect me because I think we was precautious initially in my career. You know, one of my first jobs was being a recruiter for University of Southern Mississippi, and going in and speaking to groups, you know, to mixed race groups, and sometimes how am I being seen? Am I being perceived? Is my message a good broad message, or am I directing my message to African American students I'm going after, or am I tailoring it to? There was a lot of second guessing.
Yeah.
But I realized after year one, you know what? A recruiter from Russ College said, she said, I just got the biggest compliment. I said, what? She said, the counselor at so-and-so said, you're just as good as Maurice. Your presentation. Mm-hmm. I said, how was that?
Go ahead.
She said, I said, here I am thinking and second guessing and everythcome. Yeah. She said, your presentation was just as good as Maurice's. Yeah. And she said, Maurice, that was a compliment. She said, everybody know you come across with confidence and stuff, but I didn't know that I came across that way. So I used to second guess, am I giving my best? But I realized at some point, if you are true to yourself, your best the way you present it is good enough. If you're true to yourself. Exactly. So to answer your question, I guess initially it did affect me, and it affected me in different jobs too along the way. But as time passed, I realized that, I'm good enough.
Yeah. Now, did you experience any racism? Any of y'all?
Oh, absolutely.
Coming up?
Yeah. I think we all did.
Yeah.
From not getting to school, no, but in the community, outside of the community, if you wanted to go to a movie theater, you couldn't go into the same theater as Sam could go in. You couldn't buy a snowball from the same stand that Mary bought a snowball from. You had to go to a different door. You had to do things a little bit differently because of the community that was serving it. Mm-hmm. The community that had what I call generational wealth.
Yeah.
They passed it on to their children and their children and their children, but none of us were included in that. Right. We didn't have that generational wealth to fall back on.
True.
So yes, experienced the racism, moving into the work community. When you realize that you don't look like Sam over there, you've got to do something that will make you attractive to the community. Well, you go to Toastmasters. You take speaking classes. You do the kinds of things that will endear you to the craft that you've honed for yourself. Mm-hmm. And I've done that many, many times. And speaking on the phone with people, it's like, are you black? You don't sound like you're black. Well, how am I supposed to sound?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
That question again.
What should you sound like?
Yeah. I want to touch on with that. Calvin, a long time ago, you did a presentation and you said, I speak the King's English. You remember saying that?
Yes.
And I was thinking, we were very fortunate. We were taught by German nuns who demanded nothing. I mean, there was no slang, there was no mumbling. Right. You spoke up, and there was an expectation that you were going to articulate the way you should articulate.
And I remember one day, somebody who was with us, and I don't remember who it was, happened to go to the white water fountain and got yelled at pretty sternly. Yeah. by whoever was attending the train station there. And we all froze up, you know. So I remember that.
Now, I'm saying really because you brought up the white and colored water fountains.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they were all over Bay St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
Doctor's offices, everywhere.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So I started, let's see how serious they are about this.
Mm-hmm.
I would drink out the white fountain anyway.
Mm-hmm.
No feedback. So, okay, I would wait until a white person is looking at me and then drink out the white water fountain. No feedback. I said, well, they ain't serious about this.
Back to the community for a second. In our community, we had people who were cosmetologists, barbers, insurance salesmen, train porters and conductors,
Plumbers.
plumbers,
Railroad workers making good money.
Yeah.
all of those jobs that
Pulpwood.
were out there.
Right.
Yeah, we engaged them in them, and our families were making pretty decent money raising their families. So as far as the outside element and the racism and all, people understood how and where things happened. I did exactly what Charles did. I deliberately drink from the water fountain. I never had a Mississippi driver's license as a teenager. You know why? I took the test, I passed the test, and I went to do the driver's test, and I gave my paper to the state trooper, and he said, "You finished the test?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Can you say yes, sir?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Well, you have to take the driver's test, right?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Can't you say yes, sir?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, we're not going to let you take your test." I said, "Okay." I folded up there used to be a little card you'd get that you took the test on. I folded that paper up and I put it in my wallet and I carried that thing till I moved to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where I finally got a driver's license. But I'm not going to let you tell me what I have to say to you as a person.
Racial incidents, if you call it that, but well, for one thing, my heart was totally broken when we got the news that St. Rose was closing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I was traumatized. I mean, I tried not to show it so much, but I was really traumatized. I didn't know any other place to go to school, and I did not want to go anywhere else. But anyway, in our protected St. Rose environment, that's where I wanted to be. That's where I wanted to graduate. But it was out of my hands. So credit to Wilmer Seymour, who, some people loved him, some people hated him, but he was the basketball coach at Bay High at the time. He came over to St. Rose with the principal, Donald Caldwell, and they welcomed us to Bay High. Told us what would be available to us, blah, 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 and how they're going to support us and everything. And I remember sitting there listening to them talk, thinking, these SOBs just lying to us.
And they're not telling the truth.
They're just lying to us. How, after all these years, how will they now all of a sudden welcome us with open arms and have everything available to us when just last year, none of that was available to us? Well, anyway, I didn't have a choice. Thank you. Didn't have a choice, so as we go to Bay High, and of course, I'd already played basketball at St. Rose and was, planning to play at Bay High. And of course, Seymour was always telling me what opportunities would be available and how much I was going to like the league that they play in, blah, blah, blah. But then the season started, and we go and play these different schools. probably 90% of the games we played, I was the only black face on the court. And it showed, well, of course, there were no black officials at the time. And it showed because, oh my God, I never got the benefit of the doubt when it came to calls. In fact, a lot of the calls blatantly went the other way. But got through that. So when I'm, committed to just do as much as I can do. And it got a little bit better the following year, a little bit better the year after that. Well, the year after that, I was at Pearl River. Before I got to Bay High, thank you, Sister James, who was principal, came to me with this proposition. Would you like to go to this school for enrichment? And I'm thinking, what the hell is enrichment? I'm in my sophomore year. She said, well, Andre Lozano went, and he enjoyed it, and I want you to go. I said, sister, I don't know if my parents can afford to send me away to school. She said, don't worry about that. Had me write an essay, which she submitted to the school, and lo and behold, they offered me a scholarship to go to a summer program, Phillips Exeter Academy. Now, I've never been away alone.
Exeter's in the Northeast, right? New Hampshire, yes.
Yeah. Never been away by myself. I'm 15 years old. I get on a Greyhound bus, I board in Gulfport, going to New Hampshire, ride all night on the bus, get up the next morning, we're in Columbia, South Carolina. I get off the bus at this little bus station / deli, starving, right? Had not eaten since lunch the day before. Everybody on the bus files up to the counter, places an order, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna get the biggest hamburger I can wrap my mouth around. So I get up there and I'm ready to place an order. The lady says, "Look, stop me." She said, "Son, I can't serve you in here." "What do you mean?" I said, "I can't serve you in here. If you want to go around the back door, I can serve you, but I can take your order, but I can't even take your order in here." I said, "Oh my God." I remember they hit me like a ton of bricks. Mm-hmm. And being 15 years old, I didn't know how to react to that. So I just kind of slumped my shoulders, turned around and walked slowly back to the bus, sat down. There was a little old lady, a little white lady, who just happened to be seated next to me. She said, "Sonny, you're stupid. I saw what happened, but don't you worry. I got you." She had a bag full of sandwiches. She said, okay. we got you right here, so you eat whatever you want out of this bag." That was my first experience with overt racism, which was not in the South.
Right.
Not
it was in the South.
Well,
you were in South Carolina.
Not here, I should say.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Let's Catholic boys.
Yeah.
Myron's going to lead us in prayer.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen.
Amen.
Bless us, O Lord. These are the gifts which we are about to receive from thy bounty through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. All right. So, Rachel, thank you. Sandra, thank you. We will continue this discussion. And I know Charles's question was, have you experienced racism? And there's several things that happened to me, not here in Bay St. Louis as such, because if it happened here and I got into a fight with a white kid, it just beat his ass and move on, you see? And there was no repercussion for that. But in the upper South, Maryland, I ran into some things that were definitely discriminatory and racist. I remember in college, I had moved down to Maryland after the military. I had the military, served my country, and I had an old 58 Oldsmobile.
Here we go.
And I knew how fast I was going because the odometer didn't work, but when I rode 50 miles an hour, my windshield wipers would come on. So I was never speeding, right? Well, the police in Prince George's County, Maryland had a habit of stopping the black kids from the campus, the all-black campus. So this one night, my wife, she's my wife now, 53 years.
Damn.
Hey, I can't help it. You couldn't do it. So we, she and I and my roommate and his girlfriend were riding down to the pizza parlor. On the way back, we're surrounded by police. 2 cars from the side, one from the rear and one from the front, jumped out of their car with guns drawn. Guns drawn. And I was feeling just about right. I jumped out of the car and I said, "Excuse me, sir, why did you stop me?" He said, "We got a report that you just robbed a pizza parlor."
Oh, God.
I said, "Well, that can't be true because my car couldn't get away if I did." He said, "You robbed a pizza parlor." I said, "I'll tell you what I want from you. I want your name and your badge number right now." He gave it to me. Got back in the car, went back to school. First thing the next morning, I went to the dean's office, and Dean Elizabeth Bernstein was an attorney. We went to the mayor of the town and reported what happened. Did an investigation, and we received a letter in the mail that apologized for the treatment that we received. They guaranteed that the kids on that campus would not be exposed to that kind of treatment anymore, and those officers were sent to the other side of the county. So,
Well, go ahead.
I say that because all of you know me, and if I'm involved in something, I'm involved to the end. And this was something that was happening on the campus. It was racist, it was discriminatory, and the kids did not deserve to be treated that way.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
And this was 68, the year of the
It was a bad year.
Democratic
Convention. Martin Luther King.
And we were going to Maryland Eastern Shore. And Myron, just like you, we stopped on the Eastern Shore to get a drink and to get some food and to use the restroom. And I'm sitting on the bus. I'm older than the rest of the students because I'd been to the war and the service and all of that. And they called me Smitty. They won't let us use the restroom. I said, "We'll take care of that." So I went in the store and I said to the man, "We'd like to use the restroom." He said, "The restroom's broken." I said, "Mister, I will use your counter." He said, "You can't talk like that in front of my wife." I said, "I will pee on your wife."
Oh, and you one of them.
That's not what I said, but you get the message. So I told them all, I said, "Go outside, pee on his building, get back on the bus, and let's go to where we're going, to Maryland Eastern Shore." Well, I wasn't so mad at the man because the man was doing what his law allowed him to do, to discriminate against us. I was mad at the kids on that bus because being denied something as a convenience and then going in and paying the man to buy his product. I blasted them on that bus. Yeah, experiencing it? Yes. Living in it? Yes. Do you have to accept it? No. Never have, never will. Never have, never will. Being Catholic. When my wife and I decided we were going to get married, the Catholic Church would not marry us. This was right after the Loving versus the state of Virginia discrimination lawsuit, where miscegenation? Yeah, was not allowed. Thank you.
Really?
Yeah. So the Catholic priest wouldn't marry us, so we had to go to a Baptist church to get married. But we took care of that too.
Yeah.
I've been together 53 years, Charles.
Yes, sir.
So it's not the building, it's the institution.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I have 3 experiences, all in Bay St. Louis, of I'm going to say racism or racist acts, let's say. 2 are one way, 1 is another. So my cousin Gregory would come from New Orleans, and we walked from our house to go to the Castoro. And this guy, Jimmy, I won't give his last name, but lived on the corner. And every now and then he'd see us, he said he would his same conversation. Hey, where you niggas going? I'm 11, 12 years old. Jimmy's already a man. And so, we kind of avoided him. So for this particular Sunday, Greg, who was, I'm going to say is 5 years older than me, he asked that question. And we walked into the store on a Sunday. He said, hey, where you niggas going? And Greg's first reaction was, we going to the store. He said, wait a minute, you such and such, Becker, you bring your ball off that porch car. He said, I'll beat your redneck, blah, 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 blah. And he gave him all this. He said, well, I was just asking where you're going.
Right,
You call me, he said, you bring your, I'm going to say, you come off that porch. You come off that porch. So Greg, I'm walking away because I'm saying, here I am. I got to deal with this every day. And I'm 5 years younger than Greg. Greg looked at me and said, don't you ever let nobody call you that. Don't you ever walk away from this. Then Greg, he said, don't anybody ever say anything to you. You tell them that, say, mama, you tell them this, their mama's a nigga, blah, blah, blah. So we move up about 5, 6 months. My mom, I'm the oldest boy, and we didn't have a car, and the car wasn't available. I would go with her to Jenny Jungle to carry bags home. So we're on Main Street walking, and this guy, he's still living.
Same guy.
No, different guy. This is a short guy driving a GTO with loud, thunderous mufflers, right? He yells out, niggas, and then make his car explode with the loudest explosion. I yelled at him and said, your mama. My mama said, hold up. You don't let anybody make you react like that. She said, his problem is not your problem. That's basically what she told me. You don't react just because somebody says something. You don't have to react to everything somebody tell you. She said, he's got the problem. You don't have a problem. You know who you are. You're not a nigger. You know who you are. And we walked on home. Well, those are the first 2 experiences that were kind of negative that have stood in my mind for years. First day of 1968 of integrated school setting. And I'll say his name, Melvin Sofra, sits in the front of the class. He's already shaven. You remember Melvin Sofra? Melvin played football in junior high. I saw him play the year before. Melvin was already shaven. He had a shadow in 10th grade. But I walk into the classroom, Ms. Griffith's standing at the door, and Melvin says something to me, and all I hear was white, and I'm assuming that this guy is saying something. So I tensed up. I said, you know what? I didn't want to have a fight the first day of school, but if this guy started a fight, I'm going to have to fight. Anyway, the teacher looked at me. I showed my emotions back then. I'm a little nervous, and I'm thin. I'm probably 130 pounds. And Melvin played fullback for the junior varsity team, the junior high team the year before. And Melvin, Ms. Griffith said, Melvin, move your chair up to the front. He looks at me like, so I'm still sitting the whole class period, this whole 55-minute class period, wondering, this guy going to start a fight with me when his class is over. He walks up to me, he said, Maurice, you're not going to have any problems here. He said, I'm the baddest guy in school. If you have any trouble, we'll fight them together. That's what he tells me. This is Melvin Sofra. He never finished his 10th grade year at Bay High. This was the fall of '68 that I met Melvin Sofra. Summer of '72, I drive out to Los Angeles with Steve Smith. We stop in New Orleans that Sunday night on our way to Los Angeles. Melvin Sofra, I say he was wearing a $1,500 suit. He's hawking these bars in the French quarters. And but Melvin's intentions were, he was a good person, probably caught up in a bad life, but his intentions was never to be an ugly person or a mean person. Whatever fate he was dealt that. But basically, he was saying he was not going to be part of a racist society, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was kind of refreshing,
Yeah.
you know.
As they taught us about social life, community life, as they're teaching, they're inferring, if they don't say it outright, that racism is confined to the South. And that's what they led us to believe.
Mhm.
So that same summer, 1968, in Exeter, New Hampshire, I'm in a dormitory with a guy I had met during that first week, a guy from Trenton, New Jersey, Larry Livingston. We're gonna go, let me, little background. Exeter, New Hampshire at the time was a small town of 5,000 population.
About the size of Bay St. Louis.
Yeah, at the time, yeah. And the only real industry in the town, the biggest employer was the school. There were, at the time, 1,200 students in the school, 3 dormitories. The campus was huge. 3 baseball fields, 2 gyms, all this kind of stuff. Anyway, that Saturday, of that first week we're there, we got to go wash clothes. To do that, we got to go off campus to the little laundromat in town, which was right off campus. So that's what we do. We got our boom box with us. We're walking down the street. We put our clothes in the washing machine and said, let's take a walk through town, see what's in this little town. We get about a block from the laundromat with our clothes in the machine. And we hear the boombox booming. And we hear commotion behind us. Didn't know what it was. Didn't pay much attention. Then we decided to turn around. There's a guy, big guy, white guy, with a baseball bat in one hand, German Shepherd on the leash with the other hand. That's when we found out he was talking to us. He was yelling at us, all kinds of nigga this, nigga that. We didn't know what else to do. We took off running. Ran till we got back to the campus. Out of breath, we sit down and talk to our proctor, the dorm proctor, and tell him what happened. He said, all right, sit down. Let me tell you something. He said the overwhelming majority of the people in this town have lived here their whole lives. They have never seen a black person. He said, you walk through this town, I guarantee you won't see another black person. So, all they know is what they've seen and heard on TV, and they think all black people are bad. So he was coming after you to make sure you don't get comfortable in his town. So, oh my God. I said, so all right, now on the practical side, what do we do about our clothes? He said, don't worry about your clothes. I'll go back and get your clothes. But from now on, if you want me to take your clothes to wash them, I'll do that. Or you can, wash them in one of the dormitories here. I'm going, this can't be real. Because that was my first realization. No, racism's not confined to the South.
No, it's not.
I mean, some of the worst racism is in the North. And I found that out the hard way.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when we talk about a community and what we're exposed to and the kind of racism that's in it, we can just look at the news today. We can look at the politics today. We can look at any institution in a state, in a county, in the United States, and listen to the rhetoric that spouts from our leaders, if you will, and hear the undertone of what's being said. It might not say it out loud, but we know it's implied when it's said. And it's to exclude certain people of color, certain people of different nationalities. in a country that was supposedly raised, bred, and groomed on the backs of the people of color, the people from different lands. When the United States and this town and wherever else we were, when people came to this town, the names that ended in O, A, I, O, or U were the Italians. And the Italians owned just about everything in the commercial industry. They owned the grocery stores, they owned the bars, they owned the fruit stands, the apothecary or the drugstores, if you will.
Never thought of it that way. No.
And we, the only place we could go to purchase stuff when we could was from them through the side door. That started breaking down somewhat here, which caused us either to be comfortable because we were accepted and allowed, if you will, to enter a store that way. But when you leave this area, this cocoon, this confined, restricted, protected area, and you go out into this big bad world, and you're exposed to all of the harsh things that are out there in the world. We understand what that racism, back to your question, what that racism is all about. But do we teach our children to harbor it, embrace it, and continue it? Or do we continue to teach them differently? The sad part about all of that, and that was a rhetorical question, that gets me is to kids today, especially the kids of color. I go into the classrooms and I speak to them all the time. And now the black kids are calling each other the N-word. And it just grates me and it makes my skin crawl because that's not the way it's supposed to be. That's not the way we were raised. That's not what we were taught. And that's not what we're supposed to be teaching. But they use it now because they don't know the history. And you know, the old Deuteronomy says, if you don't know your history, you're condemned to repeat it.
Yep. The kids of the day are so free with nigger because they haven't been taught the sting of that word like we were when we were coming up. Because our great-grandparents, grandparents, parents, and us understood the sting that word had, because when somebody said that word, you felt it. We did not pass that on to the next generations. That's why they're so free to use. Now, this is my opinion.
Sure.
That's why they're so free to use the word. They don't feel the sting of it. To them, it's a term of endearment, if you can imagine that. But that's the way they see it. So they're just free with that word. Now, how would you teach the sting of that word? I don't know.
Well, I think a lot of it's been perpetuated through pop culture.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Rappers
The music.
The
music,
especially.
They sing a song without the word in it because they feel like it garners more attention. I don't know.
And it used to be perpetuated through all of the rap, all of the songs. And I think, I look at Jay-Z, the way he used it when he talked about OJ. And the way he didn't use it like the other rappers did. He said, OJ, still nigga. Still nigga. He was letting you know, OJ thought he was immune from being a black person in our society because he lived away. Right. But I think the way Jay-Z used it was, I'm not in the rap music, but someone told me, say, you got to listen to Jay-Z and the way he used it. And I say Jay-Z is a smart rapper. He's a smart businessman. And to me, he was redefining the use of the word. I'm not going to use it to put my brother down. I'm not going to use it to call you out. I'm using it to say that you think you're immune from society. Society told you, you know, you got away with a lot of stuff, but you're not getting away. You still what you try not to be.
Yeah, exactly.
So my point is that, pop culture did perpetuate that and use it. And I don't know if that was their way of using it. Well, I'm not even going to try to guess how they tried to use it. But pop culture has also redefined the business dynamic.
Oh, yeah.
Where they say, you know, we own our music, we own our clothing lines, we take ownership and responsibility for our society. We're not going to let anybody else dictate to us what we're going to buy, how we're going to use our words. And I think, although the boys on the street still use it, I think some guys have taken leadership. And I look at Steph Curry and LeBron and some of the way Magic Johnson approached the NBA. They took responsibility that, you know what, we're not going to be a league of drug addicts. We're going to be a league of business people. And they redefined the model. In the late 70s, cocaine was a drug of the NBA. They're saying, you know, if you want to find cocaine, go hang with an NBA player. Well, when Magic Johnson came into the league in 1979, he redefined that. And we follow, you know, our society for some way. A lot of us follow, a lot of the community, Black community, follow the leadership sometimes of athletes and entertainers.
Sure.
And so it's been redefined. But I said all that to say, we were part of a village here in Bay St. Louis.
Yeah.
And Calvin touched on the churches, the schools. I mentioned the seminary, but I think the 100 Men Hall was a big part of that matriculation as to what happens next. Yeah, we socialized. We were educated well. We socialized. I remember my first concert here was Roscoe Robinson. It was either late September or early October 1968. Sharon said, I want to go to the dance. Daddy said, if you go, I'll go. Here I am in ninth grade. I went with her to see Roscoe Robinson. But you know what the big promotion was? Joe Tex was coming in the 1st of November.
Go ahead.
Joe Tex.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford to go to see Joe Tex, but I mean, I had $2 to go see Roscoe Robinson.
Yeah, Joe
but
Tex
I think
must have been about $4 or $5.
Joe Tex was $4.
Yeah.
What? So, and Calvin, I already told you, Myron, my first Mardi Gras ball here was the first year was Walden, Edward, Golden, Deborah. And I don't know if that was the year Calvin and Illyria were king and queen, but the next year it was a 6 of y'all. And then I'm thinking that was probably the year Calvin and Illyria were king and queen. I don't remember the year.
I don't remember.
But I remember, man, I remember that like, yeah. I danced with Vanessa. Y'all had y'all part. I danced with your sister Vanessa. I'm 4 years older than Vanessa. Yeah. Mrs. Bell told me, she said, boy, that girl daddy gonna get you. That's what she told me. But I
dancing with her?
Yeah, dancing all night with her. Mrs. Bell always teased me really good. But we were part of a fortunate village, a Black village that sheltered, that educated, that socialized us, that prepared us for the world, really.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I look at what accomplishments at this table, and I just see that we were prepared. Yeah.
You know, and just touching back for a second on perception. Okay. 1970, I graduated Bay High. Go to Pearl River Community College, play basketball. Well, that was fine. Go to practice, go to classes, go to practice. And then in the evening, of course, you got downtime, you got the dormitory. We get to talking with some of these guys from other parts of the state, particularly around Hattiesburg, Poplarville, just north of Hattiesburg, that part of the state. And when they find out that myself, Ronnie Bradley, Mickey Piernas, Don Smith, Nat Becker, the two, were all from the coast. Not only did that surprise them, but when we told them we were Catholic, what? What? Y'all Catholic? Y'all Catholic? Yeah, we're Catholic. I said, well, okay, so then they find out, okay, y'all play cards?
Here we go.
Yeah, of course we play cards. Y'all drink? Of course we drink. Yeah, because that just confirms what we all thought about y'all. Y'all come from the den of sin. The coast. I said, oh my God.
Den of sin.
Yeah, den of sin. The coast is the den of sin. To them, yeah.
The other thing is that something that came up in the other conversations we had was you had this sort of insular community. I mean, certainly the Hunterman Hall was part of that insular community. You'd have joy here amidst the dark ages of Jim Crow, segregation. But could you tell me a little bit more about what you found were the differences in the way the Black community socialized and enjoyed itself that was different from the white community? And did you ever cross over and go to any of those social engagements when you were younger and like a young man? Not now, I mean, you probably would, but back then, did you ever go to a party at a white person's house?
No,
No,
that was not something you do.
Wasn't in the cards.
The Knights of Columbus, the KCs had their parties and their bingo parties and dances, and the Knights of Peter Claver had theirs on this side. So you had two separate organizations that were one black, one white. As far as being invited to a party at someone's house, you'd have to be very, very special, and you'd have to be the only one. But normally that was not the case. No.
Camera still rolling?
Pardon?
Camera still
Yes,
rolling?
it is.
The first time I saw a white person at a party or a mixed party where a black or white was somebody else's party, our first year of integration, Myron, y'all, after Hurricane, y'all were living on Citizen Street. Remember Donnie Caldwell came to the party? So he was
a white person come to y'all's party?
Yeah, one or two. He had the time of his life.
Teammates on the basketball team.
He had the time of his life.
Yeah, I bet.
He laughed at the party. I don't know if he was drinking that night. He probably
You
drank a little
never
Valley
saw
High.
Oh, yeah.
No white people came in the hall or anything like that. There was not.
Not to my knowledge.
And what, in your mind, what was the difference between the way black people enjoy themselves and what you saw white people doing? Did you see a difference then?
Well, you couldn't see it because you never was
You
in
don't
it.
know.
You don't know.
But I can tell you, there was a wonderful time had. I remember before the Roscoe Robinson show in 1968, my sister Sharon worked with me all night, taught me how to swing out to Can I Change My Mind by Tyrone Davis. We played that song on the 45 probably 20 times so she could show me how to swing out. You know.
And you still can't swing.
Yes, I can. You can't swing, but I can swing. I've seen you stumble.
I danced with Calvin before.
And he stepped on your toes 4 times. You're not telling. You're not telling.
But so there wasn't a lot of intermingling back then.
No,
no.
Well,
Then you went to college, right? So
Yeah.
was it there? Did you find that you were suddenly in this more integrated?
we had a joint prom here in 11th and 12th grade, whereas in other parts of the state, they didn't have a joint prom. And there was a good, healthy interaction because I danced with some of my non-black classmates. And I think it was a good experience for all. I think everybody enjoyed
What year was that?
This is 69, 70, 70, 71.
And were you dancing to white music or black music?
Well, it was a crossover. I think there was a lot of black music played because you got to look at the late 60s, early 70s, the Temptations, the Jackson 5, Marvin Gaye. So there was a lot of that being played. Everybody knew who the great music was. But there also were some good, we were introduced to some of the crossover music. I'm going to say crossover because everybody knew the Beatles and, the other music at the time. So yeah, we were introduced to Carole King, I think, in the fall, 1970-71, which was some very good music.
Yeah, Tapestry. Great.
And it's too late, baby. Now it's too late.
And Charles Joseph was telling me earlier that he introduced hip hop to Bay St. Louis. Why don't you tell him about that?
Yes, I did. Back in the game when my first 5 kids were still in school. St. Rose had their CYO organization, and they had three ladies whose names I cannot remember. They were over the CYO as a club. So I started going to meetings and stuff just because my kids were going and to see what it was all about. And I got to be a regular, and then I noticed that eventually the ladies were dropping out one by one, and that left just me over the CYO. So, okay, now I'm the youth advisor, all right? Okay, now what do we do? CYO had meetings, of course, and that was always one of the questions. What can we do besides just have a meeting? What kind of recreation can we have? And one of the things that always came up was a dance. We have to have a dance. So, okay, we'll have a dance. All right, well, we have a dance, you need records, number one, and you need something to play the records on, number two. Well, I'm at home trying to cobble up some kind of stereo system so I can listen to music at home. And I started bringing that to the dances that they gave. I'm playing the record and they're dancing and blah, blah, blah. So that grew. St. Rose began to be known as the CYO rap. Had some good parties, so attendance started getting bigger. And I realized that, I got to do something about this DJ system I got here. So I built a pair of better speakers, got a separate power amp, and cobbled together some kind of mixing board, along with a couple of turntables, and it was rough. But I started playing music on that, and I'm saying to myself, I don't know what these kids want to dance to. I don't know what kind of music they want to listen to. So I'm just going to hand it over to them. So my daughters took over the DJ and responsibilities.